Hey, welcome to Transformation Fridays. This is Chani. So I want to talk about energetic patterns today. And I want to weave in a couple of ideas that we've been talking a lot about in the creatorhood practice and that I feel is really critical to helping us identify how we shift in our individual and collective consciousness toward a more growth-focused evolution and truly emotionally functional evolution. So, an energetic pattern, I find that we as human beings tend to focus a lot on what we would call negative. Now, there is no bad or good. Emotional charges, this is what we talked about last week with trauma, right? The idea of trauma being this intense emotional charge. So emotional charges occur in our lives, and we tend to give this a lot of energy in terms of the narrative around healing and all of this. I really want to look at the other side of the lens of this, because one of the things that I've realized in my life and has really helped me is identifying the strong emotional charges on the other end of the spectrum, the love, the support, the experience of being accepted, the experience of being truly in connection with somebody. And these moments that we experience where we are in a space of receptivity, or we are in a space of true reciprocity, where we are in connection and we are really tuned in and tapped in and turned on to the capacity of our soul to connect with ourselves, with another, and not from an empathy standpoint, right? Not like we're taking something on, but we're truly in connection. And I just want to really ask us to take a moment and think about those times in your life. Really think about the times that you felt truly connected, truly seen, truly in alignment with somebody or within a relationship, and lock that shit in. Lock that shit in, because just like we can have intense emotional charges on the side of the spectrum that causes us to develop narratives of being unworthy, of not being lovable, of not being good enough, or what have you, we can create energetic patterns consciously on the other end of the spectrum that allow us to remember who we are, that allow us to remember our greatness and our deservedness for being loved, for being seen, for being held in space of absolute love and connection. And the energetic patterns that we develop in that direction, on that end of the spectrum, are so much more powerful. They're so much deeper in terms of the level of connection that we have within ourselves to the experience. Because the experiences on this end of the spectrum, right, that maybe throw us into these narratives of not being worthy, etc., you have to give that attention. You have to pay attention to that for it to be true. You have to continue to tell that story for it to be true. If you give your attention to this other end of the spectrum, the love, the connection, the support, the acceptance, right, with others or with yourself, you really give that your attention, the energetic pattern that ensues is one that will go into infinity. Like that energetic pattern, if you allow it consciously, you call those times up, you call those memories up, and you say, I honor this. This is who I want to be. This is how I want to feel. This is what I know I deserve. Those energetic patterns are uninterruptible. They cannot be, they are not shakeable. They are not permeable. Whereas the patterns on the other end of the spectrum can be disrupted. They can be interrupted. And we tend to interrupt them with this idea of boundaries. The boundary, however, is very temporary. And in order for a boundary to have any significance, once that boundary is set, a standard then has to be determined and established for that boundary to no longer be required to sustain whatever it was that called the boundary up to begin with, right? So I was initially going to make this video on the idea of boundaries and standards, which is something that my mentor talks about a lot. So maybe next week we can focus more on that. For this week, though, I think what I really just want to draw your attention to is that you can give your focus to any experience that you choose. And so if you have experiences on either end of the spectrum, this energetic spectrum of feeling out of alignment, moments of abuse or moments of neglect, what have you, that have caused energetic patterns to be created in your life that allow you to believe that you're less than worthy, and you have experiences on this end of the spectrum, take a moment to consciously shift your attention to the experiences that you have had that have allowed you to feel loved, supported, seen, and held in a space of absolute acceptance. Do that consciously. Do that consciously. Breathe into those moments. Remember how that feels. Tell your body, feel it in your cells. Because if we do more of that, the likelihood of us responding out of the energetic patterns that make us feel otherwise is going to decrease. And the likelihood of us responding out of a space of absolute knowing of who we are, the fullness of who we are, that will increase. And I think that's what we want. I think we want to be able to interact with each other more in this way. So this is my offering for you today. I hope that it's helpful. I love you all, and I'll see y'all next week.